Chair, you may begin the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. So good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor James Pasternak. I'm the chair of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee, and the clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to now call meeting 13 to order. Welcome, everybody. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology. Members and staff connecting by video conference are calling in. Because we're meeting remotely, we ask that your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can observe the meeting on YouTube. The clerk staff has connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Infrastructure and Environment Committee's page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. I'd like to request that staff keep their video turned off unless they are in need to speak or answer questions. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate on each item during votes. If there are any visiting members of council attending the meeting today, I'd like to encourage you to turn on your video so that I know that you are present and can give you the opportunity to ask questions of staff or speak. This will assist the clerk staff recording member attendance or the minutes of the meeting. I also ask that all members and staff keep their microphones on mute unless you need to answer a question. I think I've said that already. If any members do wish to speak on an item, please make sure your video is on and raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate your intention to speak, and I will create a speakers list. When voting, I ask that members make sure that your video is turned on and you'll raise your hands to indicate the vote. Members, I want to remind you that all members are participating remotely. You must still submit your motions in writing to the clerk. The clerk staff is available by email at iec@toronto.ca to help you with the motions. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. I don't see anybody. I don't see any hands up, and I don't see anybody. Are there any voice calls of conflicts of interest, or hearing none? Hello? Hello?
Hello, Councillor. My name is Sam from the City Clerk's office. We can see your video and hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So there are no declarations of interest under the Conflict of Interest Act. Okay. Fine. We need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting. I don't see anybody. I don't see any hands. Councillor Layton? Yeah. Councillor McKelvey? And Councillor Layton seconding it. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So why don't we run through the agenda and let me know if you want to hold any items. So item 13.1, amendment to purchase order and purchase order. I'm not going to read all these numbers. AECOM, Canada Limited, for professional services for sewer rehabilitation, program management, design and construction services.
I'll move the staff recommendations, Councillor Layton.
Okay, Councillor Layton is moving the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 13.2, contract award negotiable request for proposal for the construction of Watermains, Ward All. So there's a staff report with a recommendation. Did anyone want to hold the item, or would someone like to move it?
The staff recommendation?
Yeah, so Councillor Cole, Councillor Cole is moving the staff recommendations. All those in favor? See all those hands? Okay. Opposed? That is carried. Item IE 13.3, authority to enter into project delivery agreement with Waterfront Toronto for the design of Lakeshore Boulevard East, Don River to Logan. Wards 10 and 14.
Move the staff recommendations. Councillor Layton.
Okay, Councillor Layton is moving the staff recommendations. All those in opposed? That is carried. IE 13.4, Metrolinx, Eglinton Crosstown Light Rail Transit, time extension of long-term road closures. That's going to be
To hold that, please.
popular. Okay, held by Councillor Cole. Okay, item 5, IE 13.5, Yonge-Eglinton Construction Hub, street occupation permit fee revisions. I'll hold that item. Oh, gosh. Okay, so I'll hold that item in the chair's name. And there we go. Okay, I think I have better visuals now. And we have, Madam Clerk, I believe we have a couple of new items.
That's
Was that the formal?
That's correct.
The formal agenda. Yeah, so I'd like, we need some motions to add, I think, 3 new items. Is that? You want to take them as a package, committee members?
Yes, let's,
Can we know what the items are? We were told not to add any items. So I can write an item up quick that I'd like to add, but if we could get some indication of what the items are.
Well, Councilor Layton, I think they were due before midnight last night, so you're out of luck.
What are the items then?
Find out what the
Could you
items
at
are?
least
Okay.
read the
So,
subject line
okay.
of the letters?
Madam Clerk, could you just, one of them is mine about a park. And then I don't know what the other 2 are. So if you could just read out the titles to committee members and then circulate.
We will put the new items one by one on the screen, and you can take a vote to add items as new business, one by one. Councillor Pasternak, if you'd like to introduce your new item, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So committee members, we're just trying to get this thing going. These are long overdue, very minor park improvements. We have a funding source, we have preliminary designs, and we're just giving staff the authority to proceed. So we just like to put this on the floor to give staff the authority they need. All those in favor of adding it to the agenda? Opposed? That carries. Next item to add to the agenda?
Thank you. We'll put up an item from Councillor Cole now. If Councillor Cole could introduce the item once it comes on the screen, please.
You just scroll, let's see.
you want me to speak to it?
If you could introduce the item?
Yes, this is just asking for a report from the Deputy City Manager of Infrastructure and Development in consultation with the Office of Rebuild and the Public Health Officer to basically incorporate pandemic protection design features in any future city infrastructure projects and give us some guidelines of how these new projects will meet pandemic protection guidelines as outlined by the medical officer of health.
Okay. So all
That's
we're
for
voting
report back in September.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Cole. So all we're doing now is voting on whether to add it to the agenda. So all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That's added to the agenda. And I believe there's one more. Well, okay. All right. Okay. Well, acceleration. Okay. I like aspirational motions. Okay. All those in favor of adding it to the agenda? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. So we'll go back to the main agenda, and I believe the first item that held was 13.4 by Councillor Cole, Metrolinx, Eglinton, Crosstown, light rail transit, time extension of long-term road closures. Cole, you have questions for staff?
Yes, as you know, this has been going on for 20 years in my riding, where we've had Eglinton under construction as it continues today for 20 years. And so now we have another extension of road closures, noise exemptions, et cetera, et cetera. The question I have to staff is there now an updated completion date that Metrolinx has given us for this lifelong project?
Did staff hear the question?
Yeah, so through the chair.
Oh, okay, great.
So through the chair, we don't currently have an updated date from Metrolinx. We know that they're talking about sometime later in 2021. We're still in discussions with them about the exact date, though, on that.
So we don't have any kind of update on when they hope to complete this project?
We don't have a firm date at this point in time, Councillor, no.
Have we asked them for a date?
We have, sorry, through the chair, we have. The answer we get is that they're still in discussions with CTS, the contractor building Crosslinks, building the LRT scheme. So they're not in a position at this point in time to give us a firm opening date.
The second question is that we had asked, certainly I did, I think council did too, asked for them to consider a two-phase approach to completing this project, so we could at least clear up part of Eglinton for normal business use and traffic. We asked them to consider doing the expedited completion of the Black Creek to Allen Road portion and dividing it off to the second portion from Allen Road to the Scarborough terminus. And this is especially acute given the fact is that there's major problems with bringing the Eglinton Crosstown underneath the Eglinton line. So therefore we might be able to expedite things at least in half of the project. Have they responded to that request about possible phasing into two parts?
So through the chair, they haven't yet, as far as I'm aware. We will certainly chase them on that, though, Councillor, and try and push for an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other questions for staff?
Questions, McKelvey? Go ahead.
Yes, Councillor McKelvey, go ahead.
I just wanted to know, what is the status of the agreements between Metrolinx and the city for signal prioritization, and where are we at on that? If we're building this major transit line, is it getting any prioritization to get through signals?
Is there a staff member who can? Is that a Barbara Gray question?
Through the chair, Ashley's on the line. I think he's on mute, perhaps.
Oh.
Sorry, through the chair. So we are working closely with Metrolinx and TTC, and have been throughout design of the project, looking at transit signal priority. There will be some priority for the LRT vehicles, and really the key is to try and keep them running on time. So the important thing for transit users is to ensure that they have certainty around when the trains are coming. So it's not about giving them ultimate priority, it's about making sure that they can keep to their scheduled running time. And we're working with Metrolinx and TTC to ensure that the priority that we install ensures that.
And then once it starts running, if there's things that aren't working, it's not staying on time, is there opportunity to tweak and update the signal priority to make it a little smoother?
Through the chair, absolutely, Councillor, there is, yes, and we will keep a close eye on that, working with Metrolinx and TTC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKelvey. Any other questions for staff? I have a couple, but any other members? Reset my clock. Could you just go into a little more detail on what you're planning at Bathurst and Eglinton? I see a figure 3 Forest Station here, and then I'm looking for the details on what your closure plans are. Could you just kind of pinpoint that? Hello?
Sorry, through the chair. Sorry,
Yeah.
So, Councillor, that was Forest Hill Station, did you say?
Yeah, so there is a diagram. It's figure 3, Forest Hill Station, but just wondering what the details are. Could you just pinpoint more closely what will happen at that intersection and when?
Yeah, so at Forest Hill Station, the issue is around the Peveril Hill Road. So there's an area of land which, or an area of the road which Metrolinx is using for a construction site, so storage of materials and some site offices, etc. So there's a piece of that road that has been closed for a period of time since early 2019, and that piece of road is required still for Metrolinx to do that construction to continue.
All right. So northbound Bathurst Street and east-west Eglinton will still function currently as it currently is.
Yeah, there are currently some term restrictions in place there, and those will remain.
Yeah. Okay. Nobody likes lane closures at the best of times, but I think what upsets people is when construction crews close a lane off and then they don't do any work in it. What's our current enforcement measures to make sure? And I'm not just talking. I don't want to pick on the Eglinton Crosstown, but across the city where construction crews close off a lane all weekend, and then they don't do any work. And what our resources are to enforce our various bylaws to make sure that doesn't happen.
Through the chair, it's Barbara. We have our work zone coordinators who plan the work to ensure that things are getting done and taking advantage now of the low traffic volumes to try to get people in and out during what was formerly the peak hour. And then we also have our standards officers who have not ceased their efforts to go out and do enforcement on construction activities where they're necessary. If there are specific sites that you're thinking of, it would be helpful for you to pass those along, and we'll make sure that they go out and do some assessment.
So what exactly do our staff do? Do they write a ticket? Do they give a warning? Do our staff have the authority?
Through you, they can write enforcement actions. They can issue stop work orders, and they've been doing that since the beginning of the COVID crisis for people who are out of compliance with their permit conditions. And we actually have been tracking the activity, and we're happy to pass that along to you. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I can certainly send you the volume of activity that the team has been up to.
All right, you know what? Why don't we do that as a staff undertaking rather than a motion, just to see maybe at the next meeting what kind of volume we're looking at for enforcement.
Sure. Absolutely.
Anecdotally, I seem to see it a lot, but a lot may not be a lot. Okay, any other questions for staff? Any speakers? See any speakers? I don't see any. Okay, would someone like to move the recommendations?
Hey, listen, I have my hand up.
Oh, I do apologize, Councillor Cole. I did not see you on my screen. Please feel free to speak.
Can we check the screens, make sure they're working here? Because we've got a problem if we don't have this set up properly. Ask the clerk, what's the problem?
No, I see you now. You're good. You look great.
Okay, thank you. This is, again, a never-ending nightmare situation on Eglinton. It's gone on for 20 years of construction. The latest phase is 8 years of digging up the whole middle of the city here, from Scarborough all the way to Etobicoke. So here we go again. There's more obstruction of sidewalks, blocking of storefronts, lane disruptions, on and on it goes. And, you know, as council, we asked for two simple things about 6 months ago. We asked for the Metrolinx, the province, to look at the possibility of expediting the construction and by breaking it down into 2 phases. And they said they would look at that. So therefore, you could at least finish off half the line to the Allen from Black Creek, and then do the other half at the same rate, but not expedited. So anyways, we asked for that response from the province, and we asked them to give us an indication of when, if ever, this line would be, the Eglinton Crosstown would be completed. So here we are. We've asked for that about 6 months ago. We have not received any information from the province about expediting this construction into 2 phases or when the construction will be completed. So we're sort of caught, between a rock and a hard place here, that we want the thing to proceed. They need to do some of these measures as outlined by staff to get the work done. On the other hand, this just continues to repeat itself, and we don't get serious responses from Metrolinx on the impact this is having. Before COVID, I counted about 125 stores on Eglinton between Keele and Bathurst that had been shut down. That was before COVID. Post-COVID, I've lost count. It'd be 200-300 that are closed. So not only does this impede traffic and pedestrian movement and community impacts, it's devastating small business in an unprecedented manner, like never seen before in Toronto. So what I'd like to do is hold off on sending this to council without approval so that we could get a response back from Metrolinx on a closing date, and secondly, what is the answer to our request to have it expedited into 2 phases? So I'd like to hold that until we can have staff make that request of Metrolinx, and we can deal with that at council.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question.
Deputy Mayor Minawong, you want to go back to questions for staff?
I just want a comment from staff, just because I think that in some ways, if I'm correct, this is an academic discussion, because my understanding is Metrolinx holds all the cards in this one, and this is more of a pro forma thing, and they're entitled to what they're entitled to, and we have to grant it anyway, or there might be some penalties involved.
Would staff like to comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Speaker, it's Tracy. I do think there is some merit to the Deputy Mayor's comments. The impact of the lane closures not being permitted and the impact that has to the project would definitely be problematic. I will say, however, to answer Councillor Cole's questions, we will do that outreach and see what we can bring forward to accompany this report as it moves forward to council, if that would assist.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sympathetic. Like, I get it. Metrolinx has made a number of mistakes and errors and delays. So I'm sympathetic to what he's saying. I just don't think we're kind of chasing our tails, and this is all a lot of, unnecessary costing. You might as well just approve it. Like, I'm with you, Mike. My heart's with you, but I just don't think, we really can do this.
Yeah, Toronto can't have it both ways. We can't have major infrastructure projects paid for by the province and then not encounter lane closures, work disruptions, noise exemptions. You can't have it both ways. And I think this is more of a courtesy than actually looking for a blessing. Any other speakers? Okay. Someone like to move the recommendations? Yeah, I'll have my vice chair. Councillor McKelvey, you'll move the recommendations. Item I 13.4.
Recorded vote, please.
Sure. Okay, so let me get my screen right here. Okay, so all those in favor, Councillor Pasternak, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Layton, Councillor Minawong, and opposed. Opposed is Councillor Perusa. Is that right? And Councillor
Cole.
And Councillor Cole. There we go. Okay, so we have that.
That item carries.
Okay. All right, item IE 13.5, Yonge-Eglinton Construction Hub Street Occupation Permit Fee Revisions. Now, I understand, Madam Clerk, we have two speakers who are going to speak together. Carmina, too?
Mr. Chair, can I just point of order for a second? Was this,
sure.
Is this item just was there a staff report attached to this, or was it just the communications we received?
Well, it was a communication on some lovely...
No staff report. I didn't see a staff report on my online, so I'm correct in that there's not an associated staff report, right?
No, it's not. No, it was submitted with the formal agenda.
Okay, yeah, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay. So we have two deputants who will speak together, Carmina Tulp and Nadia Todorova. The clerk can log them in. We'll give them 5 minutes.
Yes, those speakers are ready to join the meeting and speak.
Okay. Thank you very much for deputing online. You have 5 minutes.
Carmina and Nadia, you can connect your mics, please. You are unmuted.
Can you hear me? Hello, it's Carmina. Can you hear me?
Hi, Carmina. This is Nahom from the City Clerk's office. Yes, we can hear you. The other person speaking is still having trouble connecting. If you can give us a moment, please. Hi, Nadia. You've been granted access to connect your audio to the meeting. If you want to just connect your audio, you should be able to speak.
Denzel, I think your page flipping is getting picked up by your microphone.
Nadia, your audio is connected and you're unmuted. If you can just test that to make sure we can hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but there's some background noise happening when you speak.
I don't have anything else on, so I'm not sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Just be aware that there is a slight audio whine in the background when you're speaking.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize for that. So I will, is it okay if I start with the deputation?
So you have, if you're prepared to speak, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get going.
Okay, great.
Good morning, councillors and members of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. I do apologize for the connectivity issues. My name is Nadia Tudorova, and I'm the Senior Director of Government Relations for the Residential Construction Council of Ontario, or ResCon. We represent more than 200 builders of high, mid, and low-rise residential buildings in Ontario. And today I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Carmina Tupe from the Building Industry and Land Development Association, or BUILD.
Good morning, everyone. As Nadia said, my name is Carmina, and I'm speaking on behalf of BUILD and its Toronto chapter members. We represent over we are the voice of the building and land development industry, and are a significant economic player in the city of Toronto. Nadia and I are representing other partners, including Local 183, Sewer and Watermain Construction Association, the Heavy Construction Association of Toronto, and the Toronto Area Road Builders Association. We are here today for a unified view on the proposed motion to raise the land occupancy fees in the Yonge-Eglinton construction hub area. Like many others, our industry members have been impacted by the detrimental effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to work on recovery in partnership with our government, like the City of Toronto. At this time, consultation comes as a disappointing surprise to our industry, as it runs counter to our continued free discussions.
Apologies, it's the clerk here interrupting. I apologize for interrupting. The audio, we can't hear you here, so if we can, Chair, if we could hold this item down. And if we could mute the microphones for the deputants, please. We will get in touch with the two deputants and have them call in instead. So if we could hold this item down and move on to the next one, please. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I believe the next three items were the walk-on items. I think we're done the formal part of the agenda.
That is correct.
Okay, so I don't have the, so it'd be 13.6 would be Maryport and Mossie Park, authorizing staff to proceed with some small improvements. I think we're looking at some seating, some tree planting, a little free library. There's a funding source. There's some preliminary design work. I guess I'm speaking to my own item. And we just like to give them this authority to work on these very small projects as we create distance seating and try and get some minor park improvements done. The community has long waited for these. We've met on site several times. Staff have promised to get it done. So we want to make sure. I've been assured that more resources are going into park operations. So I obviously wouldn't have brought it if I didn't support it. I think it's something that's good for York Centre, good for Downsview, and good for the city. And I do apologize, I didn't go to questions for staff. Deputy Mayor Minawong, is it a question for the mover or a question for staff?
I have a question for staff because, Mr. Chair, you say that there's a funding source for this, but in your letter, it doesn't identify a funding source. So I'm just wondering, where is the funding for everything that's being suggested in this letter?
Yeah, they won't. Okay, you can ask staff. They won't know.
Well, that's a bit of a thing, isn't it?
No, you go ahead. You can ask staff.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Speaker, Councillor Pasternak is correct. I don't know that this is in the PF&R budget. We can certainly, through the course of this meeting, attempt to reach out and get an answer. But having just seen this now, we have no one online to assist. I'll see what I can do.
Can I ask, the chair, or why is this not a PF&R? Why is this not?
Because this is the Parks Committee.
Yeah, right. Oh, fair enough.
We're the Parks Committee.
So there's no one here to answer that question. James, where's the money coming from?
Yeah, so it is a Section 37 account. The only reason the motion hasn't come to council is we've been unable to bring members' motions. There was a sentence in the original motion to this committee that referenced Section 37 funding, but it was taken out because it could have made the motion out of order by bringing a Section 37 reference to this committee. So, I mean, if you want to amend it to make it conditional on council approval for Section 37 funding, but we've had motions ready to go for 3 months, but we've been unable to bring it to council to unlock those funds, even though I've spoken several times about bringing our various motions, our Section 37 motions to council to get our projects going.
So will you amend it at council? Can you amend it at council to add the Section 37?
Yeah, so what we'll do at council, I believe at the next council meeting, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, that members' motions will be in order. You will see this item that will go in with the committee report, and at the same time, you'll see a member's motion funding it. So we can combine the items.
That's good enough for me. If you clean this up at council, I'm fine with this.
Yeah, there's no financial pressures to this motion.
But you'll undertake to move that motion at council, yeah?
Yes, we have a funding source.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm fine, and I'm fine with it.
All right, thank you. Any other speakers on the item? No? Okay, then I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Anthony didn't vote.
Councillor Perusa, how do you vote?
He's muted.
You're muted.
How come I can't see his picture? Where is he there? Really? Is
Yeah,
he
he's there.
virtually there or not?
Tony, move your screen over.
No, he looks great. He's
See
great.
him. I'm looking for him. Oh, there he is. Hey, Bella Barba.
Exactly. I did have trouble connecting there earlier on, but I finally happy to be here.
All right. The next one would be IE 13.7. Another walk-on motion. It was Councillor Coles.
Could we have the motion up on the screen?
Mr. Chair, when it comes time to speak, I'd like to speak to the item.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Report on the framework to guide the design of future city infrastructure projects. Okay, are there questions to staff?
Yes. Can I ask staff?
Yes. Councillor Cole, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there a process in place right now whereby staff that deals with infrastructure has contact with the medical officer of health about whether or not the infrastructure project meets the same guidelines and protocols that public health has in place to protect the public from the spread of the COVID-19?
So through you, Mr. Speaker, it's a great comment, Councillor Cole. We have not had specific conversations with the Chief Medical Officer of Health about specific infrastructure projects, no. I mean, certainly we've seen through active TO and curb TO and other activities where we've modified use of our infrastructure, our road infrastructure and sidewalk infrastructure to accommodate some of the concerns arising from COVID-19. But we have not as yet engaged in a conversation about how we may need to reconsider permanent design changes on infrastructure, no.
Wouldn't you think it would be helpful, for instance, if we are going to be rebuilding or renovating our long-term care facilities, should we not consult with public health to ensure that, for instance, we don't have 4 residents to a room in one of our facilities, or the same with our shelters, that if we are remodeling or redesigning our homeless shelters, that we have protocols in place which ensure that public health is okay with these redesigns that don't basically help spread the virus because of the built form, because of the lack of ventilation. So would we not find it beneficial to check this out before we go ahead and approve any future projects?
So through you, Mr. Speaker, that's a completely different scope of infrastructure works. I'm not aware of any current plans to build new facilities, at least as far as shelters go. I can say that the staff, both long-term care and in shelters, have responded in an exemplary fashion to address the crisis that we're in and making provisions to enable physical distancing for folks, particularly in the shelter system where we've really moved out a couple of thousand people from the system to an expanded temporary facility. I think as we move forward, absolutely, that the considerations that need to be taken will be taken in respect to those types of projects. I think we're all still working through dealing with what we have right now, but absolutely, the long-term impact and how that may permanently change the way we do things going forward is a very live discussion.
Is there an audit being done right now of our infrastructure projects, in our public buildings, et cetera, whether it be retrofitting, reconstruction, remodeling, or new builds? Is there an audit being done on the impact these might have on the containment of the pandemic and COVID-19? Is that audit underway right now?
So through you, Mr. Speaker, I don't know about an audit necessarily. I can share that as an example, our office modernization project, which was happening in City Hall, has just gone on a pause. They're going to complete the work that was underway, but are absolutely looking at that program going forward in the context of this health issue, and looking at what the go-forward plan is. So certainly, everybody who's involved in projects of that nature are absolutely taking into consideration the impacts of COVID-19 and what our future needs may be. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm aware of an audit per se, but certainly the considerations on how we move forward are very actively considered and contemplated action.
I'll give you one example. Just wondering whether you're looking at it. For instance, water fountains in our parks. They're all activated by your hand pushing a button. Is there any plan afoot to essentially switch that to being activated by your foot to, again, protect against the possible spread of COVID-19 virus? Is that being done?
Through you, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, through the chair, I'm not aware of that specifically, Councillor Cole. As I say, I think we're still managing with the issue and the infrastructure that we have right now, and what steps do we need to take to ensure that all public health measures are being enacted with our existing infrastructure. It's an interesting question on the water fountains. It's certainly something I'm happy to take away. I think as we are learning more and considering more about our restart and reimagining how we deliver service, it does have that public health lens. But I can inquire about that specifically and happy to get back to you on it.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other questions for staff on this item? Speakers? Councillor Cole?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just think that we have to undertake a new perspective on going forward with our infrastructure, whether it be new build or reconstruction of our city facilities, especially, in that we can't undertake our infrastructure or construction work as per usual. We need a new public health protection lens and things, and that way we can, in essence, not build infrastructure that is not compatible with the new public health reality. And I give examples of everything from hand washing stations that should be incorporated in all our new builds or rebuilds in our public buildings, in our community centers, where we need, where we're building dressing rooms. We can't build the old hockey dressing rooms, basketball dressing rooms in our community centers, or hockey rinks that we have to basically undertake a whole rethink there. And so the sooner we start to undertake an evaluation of this, and that's what I'm trying to do with this motion, is just to get our infrastructure partners throughout city departments to start doing this in a formal way so that it's not just one-offs. We need a comprehensive approach to this so that we can include the public health protection measures in everything we spend huge amounts of money on. And I think we can do this in a smart way up front so we don't have to go back and reconstruct, our public facilities after the fact. So I think it's something that we've got to do in consultation with our Recovery and Rebuild office. I think they're aware of this. I talked to them about this, and also with our public health. So it's just the new way of doing business that is smart, and I think will save a lot of anxiety and a lot of potential risk to the public because of the impacts of crowding and the lack of proper hygiene, the lack of physical distancing. So whether it's building a sidewalk wide enough, or the way we rebuild our parks. For instance, we're rebuilding Eglinton Park, and I know Councillor Pasternak mentioned his park. I would think that we would look at the rebuild of that park with the public health protective lens to it, that we don't have infrastructure there that may not essentially help protect against the spread of the virus. So that's what I'm trying to put on the agenda here, so that we get our staff to start to put this onto their sort of going forward framework.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cole. Anyone else to speak on the item? I would just mention in passing that I think it has. Oh no, sorry, I didn't see. I don't have everyone in front of me. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong, please.
I just want to speak briefly. I mean, I think Councillor Cole's on the right track, but just in terms of providing with a certain level of assurance, and the Deputy City Manager Tracy Cook will know this. The staff are actually very involved in this, everything that we do. I'm on the strategic command team meetings every single day, and anything that we open up, small or large, like when we open up the ferry service, complete and total plan, detailed to the finest detail in terms of how it's going to open up, how people are going to get on, how people are going to get off, how can people going to be sure they're going to get a ticket. For swimming pools, swim change rooms, how long they're going to be in the pool. So they're actually engaged in all of this right now. Hopefully, my concern is, like, we can't.
I think someone's shoe is ringing.
No, like a shoe. Hopefully we don't have to redesign the whole city, and we'll find a solution to this COVID problem. Temporary, so that we get out of the headspace of trying to change everything for this. And so, anyway, Mr. Chair, city's doing all this, so we've got a plan for it for sure. But we spend a lot of time thinking about these things, and rest assured that we're trying to address them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Anyone to speak? Anyone else to speak? I just have a couple of comments. And
if I could, Mr. Chair.
Oh yes, of course. Councillor Layton, and I understand you have an amendment.
So I do, but I don't think it needs to be made. I think Councillor Cole introduced it. I think it's, I think it would add a certain level of work that I'm not sure is necessary for staff, given we have given them instructions to ensure that future infrastructure projects are meeting our climate goals and targets, and building in additional resiliency. I appreciate the Deputy Mayor's comments too, that like this virus will pass, but through it, I think the lessons we learn are that we need to put a public health lens on the investments we're making to build more resiliency into the system, and not resiliency from a climate angle or an economic angle, but from the notion that we need our buildings to be more adaptable to situations like this. We need to be able to move quickly in order to address public health threats, because this won't be the last one we face. It's possibly the biggest one in my generation, but it won't be the last one that we face in the lifetime of our public assets. And so I think having the motion stand alone makes sense, and we can deal with climate and resiliency on another day, given we already have given those instructions to staff, and this is pretty clearly about the public health and COVID response. So I won't move my amendment after all. Okay,
thank you, Councillor Layton. Anyone else to speak on the item? I would just let him, if no one else, I don't see anyone else. I'd like to go last. So I'll just lend my voice to supporting this, and it's encouraging that the deputy mayor is on a committee that's looking at these very closely. Certainly when it comes to planning and design of the city of the future, this has to be kept in mind, because as this passes, as Councillor Layton said, we must plan for the next pandemic. And, you know, when we had those extreme weather events back in 2013, much of our infrastructure, when it came to stormwater management, sewer management, and some of our other initiatives, were in response to those extreme weather events, and knowing we would get another one, other ones down the road. So I remember a few years ago, I was in, I believe, Montreal, and the way their elevator system worked was you got into an elevator that had a small cluster of floors. There were buttons inside the elevator car, and you got in to the elevator car, and there was no pushing of buttons. And I understand that buttons are a transmitter. So I thought that technology was really neat. It sort of came to mind as we're having this discussion, and as also referenced, my motion at the top a few minutes ago has these little parkettes designed so that there's social distancing and a seating strategy that protects people, but also allows them to enjoy their local park. So let's see what comes back with this. I think it's an important statement from our committee. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now, I believe, Madam Clerk, we're going back to item 7, because we do have the deputants hooked up with audio now. So, are we ready?
Yeah.
Are we ready to hear yeah, we're ready to hear the deputations. So I believe Carmina and Nadia are on the line.
Yes, we are. Can you hear us?
I can.
Hi, am I coming in clear?
Yep. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, and we apologize for the technical issues. I'm sorry, just before we begin, Councillor Pasternak, can you confirm how long we have for our deputation, just because it is a joint deputation?
Well, we usually allow 5 minutes per person.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, then. So I'll go ahead and get started just in the interest of time. So good morning again, councillors and members of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. My name is Nadia Todorova, and I'm the Senior Director of Government Relations for the Residential Construction Council of Ontario, or RESCON. We represent more than 200 builders of high, mid, and low-rise residential buildings in Ontario. And today I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Carmina Toupé, from the Building Industry and Land Development Association, or BUILD.
Thanks, Nadia, and good morning, everyone. As Nadia said, my name is Carmina, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Toronto chapter members of BUILD. We represent over 1,500 members, and we are the voice of the home, building, and land development and professional innovation industry in the Greater Toronto Area and Simcoe County, and we are a significant economic engine and community builder in the city. Nadia and I are here today also representing other industry partners, including the Leona Local 183, the Ontario Sewer and Watermain Construction Association, the Heavy Construction Association of Toronto, and the Toronto Area Road Builders Association. Today, we are here to express our collective view on the proposed motion to raise the lane occupancy in the Yonge-Eglinton construction hub. Like many others, our industry has been impacted by the detrimental effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we continue to work on recovery efforts in partnership with government agencies like the City of Toronto. The proposal to arbitrarily increase the street occupation fees so suddenly at this time with no prior consultation comes as a disappointing surprise to our industries, and it runs counter to our continuing recovery discussions and efforts. There was no due process to discuss this proposal beforehand, and the directly affected members of the House received no prior notice or any level of consultation. These increases to lane occupancies have a real possibility of impacting the viability of development projects in Toronto, and thus negatively affecting the city's revenue, service delivery, housing affordability, economic recovery, and growth. Therefore, we request the committee not support these recommendations. To demonstrate the significance of the proposal and its effect, one member operating in the House was expecting to pay $710,000 in city fees. Under the proposed new rates, this same new development would now be charged roughly $1,775,000 by jumping from the B rate category to the AA rate category. That's a significant 150% increase in unanticipated cost. With the reported 548 units in this project, that would mean an extra $2,000 per unit that needs to be accounted for, which is likely to be added to the purchase price and to the future homeowner. This magnitude of unforeseen costs midstream in a project is not sustainable and incredibly damaging to the project's affordability and relationship building with the city.
Thank you. And to add to Carmina's remarks, in an environment where ResCon and Build are finding that other municipalities and level of government are enacting measures to stimulate the construction industry, including providing for WSIB premium deferrals, which reflect an understanding of the importance of the industry to the post-COVID-19 economic recovery, it is unfortunate that the opposite approach is being considered here today. Further, we were especially surprised by the motion to increase the fees, as lane occupancy fees were already recently raised in January 2019, leading increases up to 50% higher than the previous 2015 rate. If this motion is implemented, projects in the Yonge-Eglinton area would unfairly see a further drastic, unsubstantiated year-over-year increase. In this regard, our associations are also very unclear why the Yonge-Eglinton area is being singled out for this increase of street occupation permit fees. In 2015, Toronto City Council adopted and brought into effect an area-based lane occupancy fee increase. This fee structure and associated value was predicated on the Toronto Parking Authority meter rates for different areas of the city. Therefore, the city already has a very robust process in place to determine street occupancy fees, and this motion goes directly against this established and methodical process by arbitrarily seeking an across-the-board increase to the occupancy fees in the whole hub area. As Carmina touched on, this motion goes against the fundamental intent and spirit of a number of economic recovery and stimulus initiatives ongoing at the city, like Mayor Tory's Economic Support and Recovery Task Force and other streamlining initiatives aimed at facilitating economic growth in the city, including Concept the Keys, that is being implemented to encourage developers to continue investing in Toronto. Since its inception, the industry has been supportive of the implementation of the Yonge-Eglinton Construction Hub and its focus on health and safety. We believe in its efficacy and importance to occupational health and safety, which is a top priority for all of us. We have worked collectively with Transportation Services staff on the implementation of the hub and have collaborated on a driver safety awareness campaign along with city staff in the hub. We support the idea that the hub should have dedicated funds, but believe this should be done in a more methodical and predictable way. From the beginning of the hub's creation, it was always emphasized that the pilot was not meant to be financially prohibitive or restrictive in any way. Rather, the emphasis was on public safety. The motion to raise the fees exorbitantly and arbitrarily in the hub goes squarely against the spirit of the construction hub. One option the city may wish to consider in solidifying the hub is to earmark funds from existing lane occupancy fees that are collected. Given its importance, we are in full support of the hub and the fact that it should have dedicated funds, but this should be done in a more methodical and justifiable manner, in line with the current COVID-19 economic realities. These realities should be the core guiding principles for the city on all future decisions. We employ hundreds of thousands of people, and we all need to support construction so we can keep people in Toronto working. We strongly urge you not to adopt the motion, especially as there was no due process to discuss the proposal beforehand, and it directly affects the members of the hub who received no prior notice or any level of consultation. We thank you for the opportunity to address you today, and we'll be happy to take any questions. I'm sorry, I think you're on mute, Councillor Pasternak.
Yeah, I do apologize. Thank you very much for the deputations. committee members, are there any questions for the deputants? See none. I don't see any hands up. Okay. I thank you very much for the deputations. Appreciate the information. And now we'll go to questions to staff.
Mr. Chairman, just on a point of order.
Sure.
If there is a counselor who's not part of the committee, do they have the opportunity to be on the call the way we are, or are they? How does that work?
Yeah, so visitors counselors can log in. I don't think they're panelists. They're allowed to attend, log in, and they can speak to the item. To the best of my knowledge, I assume you're referring to Councillor Matlow. I don't believe he's at the meeting.
Okay, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So, but
well,
yeah.
If Councillor Matlow wanted to speak, he could speak when you call on speakers, correct?
Yeah. So, visiting counselors are welcome at these virtual meetings. They can speak. They can ask questions of staff. I believe I'm going to be at a standing committee next week planning. So he could have arrived. He could have been here. Yes, if that's the question.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Cole, I see your hand going up.
I can't hear anybody.
No?
There's no audio. I cannot
Hello,
hear anybody.
Hello, Councillor. This is Nahum from the City Clerk's office. I can hear you all right. Can you hear me, Councillor?
Councillor Cole, we can hear you. Councillor Cole, is your Wi-Fi on? Okay. Councillor Cole, we can see you and hear you. No? Okay. We'll come back to you in a couple of minutes. Tech, can you give Councillor Cole a quick call and see if we can troubleshoot, and we'll come back to him in a minute. Hello? Yeah? Okay. I hope people
Hello.
can hear me.
Yes, Councillor. We'll connect with Councillor Cole.
Okay. Okay. That's great. So, Councillor Cole, if you can hear me, we'll come to you in a couple of minutes. I want to see if any other.
Can't hear anybody speaking. Councillor Cole here.
Okay. Tech, if you could deal with Councillor Cole, that'd be great. Are there any other questions?
I can hear. Okay. Where are we? Questions for deputants or staff or?
No, questions for staff.
Who?
If your audio is fine, please feel free to ask questions for staff.
Okay, the question for staff is, given we incorporated the construction safety hub in the Yonge-Eglinton area to deal with the massive construction that's taking place there, don't you think that this coordinated approach to pricing for street occupancy makes much more sense now than the hodgepodge pricing system that now exists there in Yonge-Eglinton?
Through the chair, we've had an exceptional good communication with the developers in the Yonge-Eglinton construction hub since we kicked off in the beginning of December. It's accurate, as the deputy said, that fees were raised. The fees are identified in areas that are based on the TPA parking rates, and when the TPA parking rates went up in late 2018, we modified the fees in 2019 to be updated to reflect that. We have been working closely with the Concept of Keys group on the overall development review program. They are going to be looking at development fees. There will be consultation related to that, and I'm not suggesting that it wouldn't be inappropriate to look comprehensively at fees, especially in construction hubs where there's lots of activity happening. And so while I don't disagree with that, I think the connection to a more robust program would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so therefore, does it really make sense right now where you have major developments taking place one block over, and they are occupying the street and sidewalk for years, and then you have a similar development across the street on my side, Yonge, as opposed to Councillor Matlow's side, that you've got two different prices for sidewalk occupancy. Does that really make any sense?
Through the chair, I mean, it was defined, as I mentioned, based on TPA parking rates, and so that's part of the reason. And again, I'm not suggesting that it doesn't make sense to harmonize the fees going forward, but I think we need to do it in a way that it takes into account some of the other components. Like we are asking the developers and contractors who work in the hub to meet with us on a regular basis to do joint scheduling of deliveries, etc.
The general manager, I can't hear her.
Oh. How about now? Can you hear me, Councillor Cole? Oh, it looks like maybe his audio is still a problem. Shall I continue? I think I finished what I was going to say.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cole, those are your questions? Okay. Can you hear me? All righty. Any other questions for staff? I have a couple.
Okay.
Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, can we bring
have audio problems again? I don't know if it's just me or I can't hear anybody.
Is it normal city policy to bring in fee increases to one intersection of construction?
Normally, we do fee increases. I mean, they're done in a number of different ways, but normally we do them as a fee review. The reason, as I mentioned, why the fees are different on different blocks in this particular construction hub is related to the TPA parking rates, which is what we heavily base the fee structure on. And I think looking at this comprehensively with concept to keys will give us a much sort of better frame about how development fees overall, there's many, many different types of development fees, of which lane occupancy is one. And so while it is a little bit odd when you take a geographic look at something like a construction hub, there might be different fees that are defined in that hub. We could look to harmonize those, but I do think it's something that we will be able to address much more comprehensively in the fee review study that we're working on right now.
My next question is, I understand there's a third councillor who's impacted by Yonge-Eglinton, Councillor Robinson, but I don't see any comment from her here. She certainly didn't sign this letter. Has she sent any correspondence to staff in relation to this, or?
To you, not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge,
okay.
Chair.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just wanted to see whether she was properly consulted on this. All right. Well, I think that's it for me. Councillor Peruzza, your hand is up. Did you want to have questions for staff?
Thank you so much for seeing my hand, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I did. I guess what I wanted to just explore is to see whether or not we've had any experience I think where Councillor Matlow is coming from, I've listened to him over the years at the committee and at council. I think where Councillor Cole is coming from, yes, is that it's the disruption. It's, big construction projects take over the roadway, take over the sidewalk, in terms of, their needs to build. Does the increase in fees alter that equation? Meaning, do developers now all of a sudden say, you know what, because the fee to I don't know, take sidewalk is has increased, therefore we will do without the sidewalk?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Peruta, I think that fees are one tool in the toolkit of managing development on site. Certainly, when fees are increased, it's certainly an incentive for a contractor to see how they can minimize the impact and therefore reduce the fee. There's a number of fees that go into the development process, as you know, and that again is why I think we need to look at it comprehensively. And then I just also want to point out that one of the main drivers behind the Yonge-Eglinton construction hub was to try to minimize the disruption and the timing through much more intense coordination amongst all the different development projects that are happening out there right now. We've had exceptional participation by the contractors. Our lead, Stuart McGee, meets with them every 2 weeks. They manage schedules on a 3-week look ahead to try to minimize impacts and increase safety. And I do agree there's a lot of construction activity that is happening out there right now, and we are working to try to minimize the impact comprehensively. But I do think there are other tools other than fees.
Can without the increase in fees, like, can minimizing the impact of construction occur without necessarily increasing fees?
Yes, absolutely. Fees are just one tool, and I think the Construction Hub program was put together in order to minimize the impact on construction and improve safety in a situation where we have lots of construction happening in a close geography. So certainly fees are one tool. I think they're often they're easier for the developer to kind of build in at the beginning, of course. When we change things in the middle, it's a little bit more challenging for them because they already have their program defined.
But it's not necessarily the developer that pays the fees. I mean, the fees are essentially paid by all of the developer's users, rather all of their contractors and subcontractors. I mean, those are the folks that really sort of have to swallow the fee increases. Isn't that the case?
I think that arrangement is different based on how the development is structured and whether it's a developer that also has a contracting arm and does the full development of the program, or if they work, many of them, of course, work with general contractors to do that work. So I think it is spread. But again, it depends on the project and how it's set up.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perusa. Any other questions for staff? I'm scrolling. I don't see any. If you could shout it out. No? Okay, speakers. Let's go to a speakers list. I see Deputy Mayorman Wong's hand went up. I assume Councillor Cole is speaking. Deputy Mayorman Wong, you're first.
Sure. I don't have a lot to say except I think I'd like to see a staff report on this. I think this came from council. It's just a simple letter form. As staff have already told us, they'd like a comprehensive plan. I'd like to see the details. I think the deputants have raised some interesting issues. Instead of making these changes on the fly, I think it would be prudent to get a report back and carefully consider what the implications are, and then move forward after that. So I'm going to move that this be referred to staff for a report back to this committee, and if maybe Councillor Cole, if he feels the need, can put a date on that. I'm also mindful of the fact that even the mover of this motion, Councillor Matlow, hasn't even shown up to the meeting. So in terms of it being a priority, maybe that's a reflection of the priority we should put on it.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Wong, thank you. Madam Clerk, can we just refer the item off to staff for report back? that'd be one of the motions on the floor. Councillor Cole, I saw your hand to speak. I know you're having some technical problems.
We need to look at that.
Councillor Cole, you okay?
Vacuuming.
Is someone doing house cleaning? If someone's decided to vacuum at this time, could they maybe wait a little later?
That's almost as good as Councillor Kyriakides making house calls.
Okay, I'm going to say a few words during this interlude. Other than me, are there any other people who would like to speak to the item? Other than, I guess, Councillor Cole, once we get him back once he's done his housekeeping. Oh, there he is. Councillor Cole, your hand was up. Did you want to speak before? I was going to say a couple words, but...
Yeah, can I just put this into context, please? Thank you. Yeah, we had a bit of... I wasn't getting good reception in one room. I had to move. Sorry for the move in the middle of my poor dear wife vacuuming. Sorry. Anyways, reality in the days of COVID. Anyways, the context of this is not anything on the fly. You know, we had people of North Toronto, Midtown, in the streets in the spring. They just came to their wits' end with the unfortunate death of a young caregiver crossing the street to work, run over by a cement truck. And people have just said they've had enough, because we have more construction and development going on in Yonge-Eglinton, I think the whole city of Boston, because it's not just the development of condos, it's also the construction of the Eglinton Crosstown that's going on. So we have non-stop cement trucks, front-end loaders, dump trucks, everything of every description on all our streets, like Yonge Street, Merton, Sudan, you name it, Roselawn. So some of these streets are very narrow, some are wide, like Yonge Street, but what there exists is there's a hodgepodge of pricing for sidewalk street occupancy that doesn't make any sense, especially since we, as a city council, put in a construction safety hub for the area to basically deal with the ad hoc approach to construction, delivery of materials. You had 30, 40 dump trucks lined up in front of a public school. It is chaotic. So the residents have had enough of this chaos that results in a serious public safety issue. So that's why we push for the construction safety hub, and we have that in place. But now the construction safety hub area has been designated, but yet there's different pricing for occupancy of different sidewalks and streets in the area. And remember that this occupancy basically sometimes goes on for 2-3 years. It's not just a month or two. And so what is happening is you're driving, now with COVID, there isn't as much pressure on the sidewalks as there was before, with everybody trying to get on the subway. But when things get back to normal, it is going to be chaotic again with all the sidewalks that are very narrow, construction trucks, giant cranes, you name it. And plus, we have about another 10, 30, 40, 50, 66-story buildings going up. And like I tell our friends from the development industry who made a deputation, why not you build your condo somewhere else? We've had enough. Go build them in Oakville. Go build them in King City. But we can't take any more in Midtown. You know, our safety's at risk. You know, we've even had accelerated noise. All our noise bylaws have been stripped apart by the province so they can work from 6 in the morning to 10 at night. So even with COVID, there's been nonstop construction of all these condos in the sky. So that's why we need to protect the public who is trying to navigate these streets, the kids are trying to get to school. We have a lot of elderly at the Stanley Knowles Co-op, et cetera, trying to get to and from their doctor's appointments, et cetera. So, it's not as if this is something new. We've told the development industry, you've got to get your act together. You just can't treat our streets and sidewalks like construction zones. So we need some pricing so we can pay for the policing, the coordination, and the operation of the construction hub. So we're still saying you can still construct, but at least pay a reasonable price, a fee that is the same on one side of Yonge Street as the other side of Yonge Street. That's why we need this fee structure that is uniform in the construction hub area. And especially given the safety concerns, this is not something we can keep putting off. And we've got to ensure that if they're going to come forward with a street sidewalk occupancy permit, they've got to do it.
If you could,
yeah, I'm just saying.
If you could wrap up.
Like I invite developer representatives to come and try and walk the streets of Yonge-Eglinton one morning at 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock. See what you think of how safe it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other speakers on the item? Yeah, I'll just wrap up by saying I'm not going to support policy on the fly like this, to bring a motion to council to just unilaterally raise fees without sort of a thoughtful dialogue. It's nothing against my my committee colleague, but this isn't the way to do it. To just come with a motion raising fees in one intersection in the city, and I don't see the raising of these fees solving any of the problems that Councillor Cole has listed. I don't think you're going to solve the noise problems. I don't think you're going to solve the dirt problems, the congestion problems, the traffic chaos problems. I don't think you're going to solve any of that by raising these fees. And moreover, I'm just not a fan of raising taxes during a recession. So with that being said, I would support, if we can refer the item off to staff, if they want to come back with maybe a more comprehensive report on what our fees are. They've gone, they went up in January of 2019, so it's been about 18 months. In fairness to the two councillors who brought this motion, it was, I think it was originally dated for March. The letter is dated March the 11th. So I think they've been pretty anxious to get this to committee. So in fairness to them, they've been trying for a few months. But that being said, I would not support this kind of pretty dramatic tax increase, hurting our corporate sector during a recession, and I don't think it's going to solve the problems that have been listed in the discussion. Moreover, when you go to item number 3, where you're trying to direct fees, where councillors are asking for city fees to be directed to a specific initiative, I think that's a sort of a very risky path to go down, and we'll be just flooded with motions where you'll have ad hoc fees and taxes just directed all over the place. I don't think that's a good precedent. So I'll leave it at that, and I would support Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong's motion to refer it to staff for a report back. If that fails, then I'm just going to defeat the item before us, or vote against the item before us. Okay. Yeah, everyone see the motion? It's a referral motion by Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong. All those in favor?
Recorded vote, please.
Okay, recorded vote. Those in favor, Councillor Pasternak, Councillor Perusa, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Minnan-Wong, Councillor Layton. Opposed is Councillor Cole. Okay, I think we have one more item, Madam Clerk. It was the third added item. That's still outstanding?
That's correct. Item from Councillor Mike Cole on accelerated implementation and installation of new traffic control devices, including new traffic signals, mid-block pedestrian signals, pedestrian crossovers, and flashing beacons.
Okay, great. Could we just pop that up on the screen again so councillors are familiar with it? And I'd ask if there are questions for staff on the item. There we go. Oops. Was there a second ago? Deputy Mayor Minowong, questions for staff?
Yeah, when you accelerate projects, that means you spend money faster. I'm just wondering what the financial implications are to this piece.
Through the chair, we have existing contracts. Part of the reason for the delay in traffic signal installation is because of the core certification requirements, which have made it very difficult to get registered contractors. So we've had only one contractor approved for new signal work since 2017, which has helped create the backlog. The goal, yes, is to get the signals in faster and be able to manage our spend rate and to spend the resources that we have allocated either through Vision Zero or through other budget items for traffic signal installation.
How much money is assigned to this?
That's a great question, Councillor. I'm going to have to see if my backup team can shoot that to me from the budget. I don't have the budget in front of me right now, but I can certainly get that information for you, maybe before the end of your questioning.
How far behind are we on implementation of projects that are approved?
So we have a backlog of about 70 traffic control signals that we're trying to clear right now. And so the turnaround time, which we typically have is a year, has increased to 18 months. We have a plan to resolve that significantly. And in fact, our plan going forward is to modify our process in order to be able to get signals in within about 6 months. So we're working on trying to do process improvements while we're trying to clear the backlog. This year, I believe we're trying to clear the backlog of 70 over the summer, and we have additional visions here.
Sorry, you just went.
Yeah, I can't hear. We lost audio.
I don't think she knows.
Barbara?
She's going to go on.
Barbara? Madam Clerk, can we get tech to help her out? It looks like she doesn't know she's muted.
Hello, Councillor. I'm messaging Barbara currently.
Okay. Thank you.
They.
Too bad we didn't have this when Howard Moscow was in council.
Oh my gosh.
He's listening. Watch out. He's probably listening.
Some incoming call. I don't know what it was, but I apologize for the delay. Okay. Where was I? We were on budget. So we typically do about 20 signals a year. We are planning on doing 50 signals this year, again, in efforts to help clear the backlog.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question.
Councillor Cole?
Yeah, in terms of cost, the fact is that the city has been single sourcing these traffic signal light installations. Hasn't that driven up the cost by having just one provider?
Through the chair, so we have multiple providers, but our major electrical contract, you're correct, we have a pretty significant electrical contract. When we've gone and we're coming back around to rebid, we've had challenges as many other city divisions have had with regard to our contractors getting core certified. And that core certification has been kind of a challenge for us in getting multiple contractors to be able to bid on these jobs.
So isn't it just one provider that's installed most of these traffic signals? Is that the case?
We have actually multiple providers who, contractors, certified electrical contractors who work with us, but we do have a significant contract for electrical maintenance with Guild Electric.
Yeah, but Guild has been the only provider, basically, been dealing with. How many years now has Guild been the only provider since you put in the core certification program?
Well, the core certification program came into play just, I believe the requirements were in place last year. The electrical maintenance contract, the significant electrical maintenance contract that we have with Guild was a multi-year contract, so it has been a number of years, but we also use other providers to install traffic signals as well, so they're not the only provider that we use.
Has any other provider installed any traffic signals in the last year or two?
I believe so, yes.
And wouldn't it help if there was a competition in this field so that we could get different people to bid rather than just having it all under one provider, basically?
So we are actually working with PMMD right now on an approach to category management for our electrical contracts, and we will be going out, I believe, later on this year with a revised contract that we hope to, and we're going to be doing some market soundings, and so it's I believe the electrical maintenance contract concludes in 2021, and so we are certainly looking at other contracting approaches to move forward.
Why would it take 2 or 3 or 4 years to get traffic signals installed after they've met the warrants and council has approved them? Why does it take that long?
Thanks, Councillor. I mean, I think the situation that we've been in for quite some time has been that we've had some backlog. We've also had some requirements on our side with regard to getting counts, traffic counts, and other data to support the installation of the traffic signals that has taken quite a long time to get in place. We've modified that. We've upgraded the traffic count information, and so we're working very diligently to try to get this installation to within 6 to 12 months, routinely, as opposed to that being the outlier.
But the norm is what, 2, 3, 4 years now to get traffic signals installed in the city?
I think typically, I mean, we've been striving for 12 months. I think it's been 18 to 24 in some cases.
I know in my ward, it's been a 3-year wait, and they still haven't turned on the signals at Glen Grove and Dufferin, because as we waited 3 years or so to get the lights up, now we're waiting another 3 years to turn on the signals, for God's sake. Why does it take 3 years to turn on the signals?
So I share your frustration, Councillor. In order to turn on a signal, we need to have police support at the intersection in order to be able to manage that. And so I will look into that specific location, but we have been, as many, with the huge boom in construction, it's been very challenging. And that's just one piece of the process. It's not just that, but in order to turn on the signals, we do need support from the PayDuty team.
I don't understand. We've had warrants, we've had council approval, we've had engineering reports, we've had transportation studies done on it. Now we have to wait for more reports to turn on a switch?
No, not more reports. We just need a certified officer in the field to be able to manage the changeover from when there's no signal to when there is a signal. And it's something that we're working on trying to manage in a much more specific way so that we can reduce the time that it takes.
What do you mean by officer? We need a police officer, or we need I don't know, who do we need there? I'm not sure to turn on the signal.
Yep, we need a police officer who's authorized to countermand a signal.
And so right now we've had to wait 3 weeks to turn the switch. We can't find one police officer to get there and turn on the switch.
Through you, again, I will check on that specific location, but I can tell you that we've worked very closely with the paid duty office to try to move this work forward. Certainly in the recent past, with the huge increase in construction that we've seen over the last number of years, there's been more paid duty assignments than there have been officers to fill those paid duty assignments, and very often some of our projects get impacted. So I will take a look at this one at Glen Grove and Dufferin.
So we can't find a paid duty officer to show up for a few hours and turn on the switch. Not available. They've got other priorities right now.
Again, I'm going to check in with staff on the details of this specific location, and we'll try to get that prioritized to move forward given the timing. But there also might be conflicts with construction in the area and other issues that we need to investigate. So I will take that back with staff and find out what the situation is for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cole. Are there any other questions for staff? No? Councillor Cole, your buddy, Councillor Mallow, wants to cut police services, so I think you're going to have a longer wait to get those signals going, maybe double that. Just very quickly, one thing I missed, crosswalks, Barbara. What is the service level for installing approved and funded crosswalks?
Well, that's a great question, Councillor Pasternak. We do some of our crosswalks internally with city crews and others, but the bulk of them we do with contracted services. And often sometimes they're bundled together with other construction projects. So it depends on the specific situation.
Okay. All right. Okay. 18 months, 12 months.
I mean, once it's approved, it should be done within one calendar year.
Okay. All right, speakers. See who's here. Councillor Cole?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank Barbara Gray for enduring my questions on this very far. Actually, I've been working with staff on trying to find a way of unlocking this, and I know Roger Brown has been very helpful, because I've said to him the same questions I've asked the general manager. I said, why does it take 2, 3, 4 years to get signalized intersection in the city of Toronto? And it really adds to the frustration, especially when there's been warrants out that's met the warrants, and intersection is dangerous. There's accidents, and people just don't seem to understand why we are unable to install traffic signals, within a year, within 2 years, but not 4 years. And it's not a policing issue. This is the root of it. It seems to be, this is sole sourcing. There's no competition. There's one company that provides this, that meets the qualification. So the city has been basically unable to put in a system that is competitive, so we get different contractors applying for the work and installing the traffic signals. And that's what this does. It gives the committee to staff the power to look at ways of opening this process up to different contractors so that we can deal with this significant safety issue. The ironic thing is that here we are pushing Vision Zero, pedestrian safety, traffic safety, and people are very anxious to help, and they're very anxious to see safety enhanced on their streets. Yet there's been a slowdown on our part in delivering basic safety initiatives like installing traffic lights. So we can't be saying we're great champions of Vision Zero, and then we can't install traffic lights in a timely fashion when they meet the warrants. And as all of you know, it is difficult to meet the warrants. We get these requests all the time, they're turned down, but this one passed all the tests. And the process has to be updated to meet the reality of the hazards there are in our streets. for pedestrians, for motorists, the number of accidents. So we have to streamline this process. Talk about wasting taxpayers' dollars, and we have to use taxpayers' dollars properly by not single sourcing this type of thing. And we have to make it competitive and timely. And we shouldn't be waiting on a paid duty officer to turn on a switch for a couple of months. This is the other ludicrous thing where we talk about policing and why should the police be doing that anyways? We supposedly have these traffic agents we've been begging for the last couple of years from the province. Why couldn't a traffic agent that we have passed at council, why couldn't they be deployed at the corner? And this is why maybe Councillor Matlow has a point. We can't be asking the police to do everything when things like turning on a switch at a traffic signal intersection shouldn't be the job of a police officer with a gun. We should have traffic agents doing this type of thing. So thank you very much, and let's get on with expediting this process, opening it up and making it competitive so we can get lower cost traffic signal installation and we can make our streets safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cole. Are there any other speakers on the item? No, I don't see anyone. I would simply say that this is a worthy discussion. There was a crosswalk in Bathurst Manor along Wilmington at Searle that was approved in the last council. So it's pretty close to going into its third year since council fully funded it and approved it. I did go by there the other day. It looks like some of the scoping work and initial concrete is done, but this is probably a 3-year project, 2.5, 3-year project once it's approved by council, and we absolutely have to do better. People are calling on the city to get traffic control and pedestrian safety measures in faster. That's what we recently did with our cycling infrastructure, with our quiet streets, and of course yesterday with our bike share. People don't want to see bigger government. They don't want to see smaller government. They want to see better government and faster government. And this is one area where we've got to be better and we've got to be faster. So I think this is an important discussion. So let's get it off to staff and see what comes back. All those in, we can go to vote. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is carried. Madam Clerk, I think that concludes our business for today.
That is correct. You may adjourn if you wish.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, city staff. Thank you, clerk staff. And thank you, tech, for your assistance. Be safe out there. And we hope to see you soon, and hopefully soon in person.
And I apologize to my wife for interrupting her vacuuming. I should have been doing the vacuuming.
Oh, you got a clean house now. It's great stuff. All the best, everybody.
Now, Mike.
Okay, Ando.
Have a great day. Yeah, take care.
Bad.